Managing DNS in Plesk. This tutorial will show you how to manage DNS in Plesk. For this demonstration, we logged into Plesk as the admin user. If you're logging in as a client or domain administrator, the navigation will differ slightly and some of the options will not be available in your control panel. Whenever possible, we will note the differences in access levels in this tutorial. First, let's look at the global settings for the server. Click the server link. Click the DNS settings icon. From here, we could use this icon to stop the DNS service. We can also configure the zone template that is used for DNS zones that are created automatically for the domains we add. Let's add a record to the template. Click the Add New DNS Record icon. The first type of record we can add is an address or A record. A records are used to point domain names to IP addresses. Here you can enter a subdomain to be added to the template. Here is where you would enter the IP address. Now let's look at some of the other various record types. Name server or NS records define what servers handle DNS for the domain. You likely will not need to alter these in the template unless you have additional external name servers for your domains hosted elsewhere. Canonical names or CNAMEs are used to point names to other names. These types of records are also known as aliases. Plesk is designed to only use absolute references to domain names in records, so you will need to enter the fully qualified domain name when entering destination records to other names on the same domain. It is also not necessary to add the terminating period at the end of the domains, as Plesk will automatically insert it for you when the record is submitted. Mail exchanger or MX records define what servers handle email for addresses on the domain. When using multiple MX records, mail servers will attempt to route email to the destinations by the priority from the lowest to highest, only attempting to deliver to higher priority destinations when attempts to deliver to the lower ones fail. Having multiple MX records with the same priority will be delivered in a round-robin fashion. This would be considered to be a load-balanced configuration. When using just one MX record, the priority is arbitrary. Pointer or PTR records are used to point IP addresses back to domain names. These are also referred to as reverse DNS records. Authority to host the reverse DNS records for an IP block is usually not delegated to the client by the provider, so you should not need to add this type of record. If you wish to have the PTR changed for an IP in your block, you can contact your provider and request that they change it for you. Text or TXT records are used to include additional information about a domain in the zone. One common use to TXT records is to set an SPF policy in the zone. The Sender Policy Framework, or SPF, is a system developed for mail servers that use it where DNS administrators can define what servers have been authorized to deliver mail for a particular domain. Servers that are configured to check SPF will often reject email from a source if the relaying server isn't explicitly authorized in an SPF record for the sender's domain. For more information regarding SPF, refer to the following website. Let's add an A record to our template. Enter the domain name for the subdomain. Enter the IP address. Click the OK button. Entering an actual IP address, such as our primary IP address, will create an A record in each zone to point the name to that specific IP address. To have it create a record pointing at the IP address assigned to the domain when the domain is added, we enter the value greater than IP less than. Consequently, when adding names to other types of records, greater than domain less than can be used as a wildcard value in the template for the domain that will be added. In the source domain portion of records, the value greater than domain less than is assumed and should not be entered. When adding values for the domain itself instead of a subdomain, leave this field blank. Let's now change the record so that it will use the IP address assigned to the domain. Click the host for the record. Enter the new value. Click the OK button. Now let's remove a record from the template. Click the checkbox to select the record. Click the Remove Selected link. Click the Confirm Removal checkbox. Click the OK button. Click the SOA Records Template tab. Here you can control the values in the Start of Authority or SOA for the zones. This option controls the TTL value for each of the records. The time to live, or TTL, for each record is the suggested time that a resolver that caches DNS records should answer from the cached copy before requesting a new copy of the record. TTL values in the actual records are in seconds, although you can select a different increment, and Plesk will do the conversion when the value is submitted. Click the Transfer Restrictions Template tab. If you have other DNS servers elsewhere that are configured to be slaves to this one, you can add the IP addresses of these servers so that they will be allowed to copy the zones when they're updated. Click the DNS Recursion tab. These settings control the system policy for recursive DNS requests. A recursive DNS request is a request to resolve a domain where the zone is hosted remotely. Servers that are configured to answer recursive DNS requests are also referred to as resolvers. If the system is configured to deny all recursive DNS requests, the system will then use the resolvers configured in the system to resolve domains on remotely hosted zones instead of doing the lookup itself. Now let's look at the settings for an individual domain. Click the Domains link.